When a woman goes too far insulting someone she doesn't understand, the consequences ripple far beyond a single flight. Have you ever seen someone regret their words the very next day? Let us know in the comments section below. Karen Whitmore had paid for first class, not just with money, but with entitlement. In her mind, her lifestyle, her image, her way of speaking, even the subtle designer logo on her cashmere scarf, all of it screamed deserving. That's how she saw the world. There were those who belonged and those who didn't. She didn't just walk through the airport, she floated. Eyes half-lidded behind gold-rimmed sunglasses, fingers clutched around a venti soy latte like it was a trophy. People didn't need to know her name to know what she thought of herself. It was in the way she looked at anyone holding a carry-on with duct tape, or a child with plastic beads clacking in their braids, or, like today, a woman in military camouflage. Karen paused at gate A17 and wrinkled her nose at the boarding crowd. It was too noisy. A baby was crying somewhere, and the line snaked well past the gate podium. Why don't they just get pre-checked like the rest of us, she thought. She checked her boarding pass, seat 1A. She smiled. First on, first off, no problem. But her smile faltered the second she saw her. Seated already in 1B, upright, disciplined, not looking up. The woman was black, in full military uniform, the kind Karen had only seen in movies. Her boots were polished to a gleam, even though they peeked from beneath baggy regulation pants. Her name tag read Cohen. Karen blinked. A black woman named Cohen? That didn't sit right with her either. Karen hesitated before stowing her bag. No greeting, no smile. She slid into 1A with a huff, brushing invisible lint from her sleeve and dramatically tucking her bag beneath the seat with a grunt, as if to make a point. "Excuse me," she said after a pause, voice sharp like cut glass. "Do you always wear that in public?" Dayna looked up. Calm, silent. Her eyes were dark, but they held none of the fire Karen expected. No reaction, just a slow blink and then back to her book. Karen didn't like being ignored. I get it, military and all, but it's a bit much, isn't it? People might get uncomfortable, reminded of things. Feel nothing. Karen looked over her shoulder, hoping to make eye contact with a sympathetic stranger. But no one met her eyes. "I just think if I had a uniform like that, I'd wear it somewhere more appropriate, like a base, not a commercial flight." Dayna finally closed the book, gently folding the corner of the page. Her voice was low, even. "Are you uncomfortable?" Karen blinked. "I said," Dayna repeated. "Are you uncomfortable, ma'am?" The ma'am felt less like respect and more like a mirror. Karen's reflection, perfectly delivered. "Well, no, I just..." "Good. Then maybe read your pamphlet and let the flight crew do their job." Karen flushed, embarrassed but still clinging to her own sense of power. "I just think people should have manners." Dayna turned back to her book. "I agree." The rest of the cabin filled quickly. People whispered and side-eyed, especially after the quiet tension up front. A mother walked by, gently touching Dayna's shoulder and mouthing, "Thank you for your service." Dayna gave a quiet nod. Karen scoffed. The plane took off. Meal service came and went. Karen didn't speak again, but she did sigh dramatically, adjust her seat with unnecessary aggression, elbow the armrest a little too forcefully. Dayna didn't flinch. Instead, her thoughts drifted. She wasn't reading anymore. Not really. Her mind was far away, in desert heat, in deafening blasts, in the hospital tent where she held her best friend's hand as the machines went silent. She thought of home, of the newspaper clippings she never read, of the folded flag she kept in a case, untouched. Seat 1B was earned, not just with rank, but with blood. Across the aisle, a flight attendant whispered to a colleague near the galley. Karen, craning her neck, overheard one line. "She's the staff sergeant who shielded those kids in Fallujah." Karen froze. She had no idea what that meant. She just knew it was on the news. Big news. A headline she skimmed and dismissed. Something about a surprise attack. Something about a soldier who didn't run. Dayna leaned her head back now, eyes closed, finally resting. Karen didn't move. Didn't fidget. Didn't speak. Because for the first time in a very long time, she was thinking. She was thinking about uniforms and the people who wear them. About how quiet strength doesn't ask for recognition. It just is. She was thinking about what it meant to judge someone before knowing their story. And she was thinking, maybe for the first time in her whole life, that she might be wrong. But she still didn't say thank you. Not yet. Not today. Not until the morning. Karen lay in her hotel bed that night, arms crossed over her chest, eyes stuck open like they were taped to the ceiling. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, the mattress plush, the room silent except for the low hum of the air conditioner. She'd stayed in nicer places, but this one still cost more than her monthly gym membership. And yet, she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying that plane ride, rewinding and looping like a scratched DVD. She had never been made to feel small before. She wasn't the kind of woman who second-guessed herself. That wasn't how she was raised. Her father used to say, "Never blink first." And she didn't. Not in business meetings, not at the country club, not even when she told her third husband to pack his things and get out. What today? She blinked first, and she knew it. The soldier's voice echoed inside her like a slow drum. "Are you uncomfortable?" What a thing to ask. What a thing to say with that much stillness in her face, like a stone at the bottom of a clear lake. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. But it was more powerful than any shout Karen had ever heard. Her phone vibrated next to her, a news alert. Karen picked it up, expecting something about politics or celebrity gossip. But the headline slapped her. American Staff Sergeant Dayna Cohen, honored for shielding school children during 2023 mortar attack. She blinked. That name. Cohen. That was her. The woman from the plane. The one in the seat next to hers. With trembling fingers, Karen tapped the article. Her heart thudded harder with every paragraph. Staff Sergeant Dayna Cohen had been escorting a group of students from a humanitarian school partnership in a rural part of Iraq when an insurgent mortar hit nearby. She'd thrown herself over 2 children and shielded others with her body while calling in medevac coordinates with shattered fingers. She was flown to Germany for surgery, then returned stateside without fanfare, declining interviews and medals. Karen's eyes filled with tears. Not the kind she let fall, not the one she'd trained herself to blink away during funerals or bitter courtroom settlements. No, these were the kind that rose up before you knew what they were, the kind that pushed guilt out through the skin. She had mocked that woman, dismissed her, while Dayna Cohen was silently sitting with ghosts. Karen sank deeper into the mattress like it might erase her. She let the phone slide from her hand and dropped to the carpet below. Suddenly, her room didn't feel luxurious. It felt sterile, fake, like a lie she had dressed herself in. Because what kind of person saw a soldier in uniform and assumed it was a costume? At that same hour, Dayna Cohen sat on a folding chair in her mother's backyard in Austin, nursing a lukewarm ginger ale and trying not to let her thoughts pull her under again. She wasn't one for dramatics. She didn't like pity, never had. But that flight had made her stomach turn in a way she hadn't felt since deployment. She wasn't mad. Not exactly. That woman, the white one, with the scarf and the entitlement, wasn't new. Dayna had seen her kind 100 times, in different cities, different accents, different names. She always knew the face. But what gnawed at her now was how tired she'd felt in that moment. Not angry, not hurt, just tired. Tired of biting her tongue, of folding into herself, of wearing a uniform that drew stares in Target aisles and airports and waiting rooms. A uniform that people only respected when it came with a man's face. Her mother came outside, holding a blanket. "Do you want something stronger than ginger ale?" she asked, her tone gentle but knowing. Dayna smiled weakly. "I'd just fall asleep in the chair." Her mother draped the blanket around her shoulders anyway. "Might do you good." They sat in silence for a while. The kind that doesn't press down but wraps around you like steam. "You used to say," her mother murmured, "that coming home felt weirder than being over there." Dayna nodded slowly. "It still does." Her mother didn't pry. She just reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. "I saw you on the news," she added softly. "Didn't tell the neighbors." Dayna's lip quirked upward. "Appreciate that. You know you could have died." "I know, but you didn't." "No." Her mother studied her, then looked away. "They said you shielded kids." The silence deepened, heavy but sacred. "You always hated bullies," her mother finally said, voice barely above a whisper, "even in kindergarten." Dayna chuckled, short and dry. "Guess I still do." Another pause. "But what about when the bully is just ignorant?" her mom asked. Dayna's smile faded. She didn't answer. Because that was the thing, wasn't it? People like Karen weren't monsters. They didn't spit slurs or light torches. They just whispered their doubts under their breath, dressed them up as concern, and called it manners. But the effect was the same. A slow grind against the soul. And Dayna was starting to wonder if silence really was the best weapon. Or if sometimes dignity alone wasn't enough. Her eyes drifted upward, catching the stars. She wondered if that woman would read the article, if she'd feel anything, if she'd change, or if people like that ever did. A door creaked open behind them. Her little nephew, barely 6, poked his head out. "Auntie Dayna," he called, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Mama said to come tuck me in." Dayna stood slowly, joints still stiff from the flight. She kissed her mom's cheek. "Be back." And as she walked inside, one hand on the doorframe, she caught her reflection in the glass. Uniform still folded over the back of the chair, medals tucked inside the front pocket. She wasn't wearing it tonight, but somehow it still felt like armor. Karen didn't cry easily. She was raised to believe that tears were a kind of emotional clutter, better swept under the rug than displayed for the world to see. But as she sat on the edge of her hotel bed, back arched like her bones couldn't hold her, the tears came anyway. No sobbing, no noise, just the slow, shame-heavy kind, the kind that came when you weren't crying for someone else, but because of yourself. She read the article again. Every sentence stung sharper than the last, not because of how beautifully it was written. It wasn't. But because it was so factual, clinical. The story didn't need embellishment, just truth, and the truth was this. Dayna Cohen had done more in a single second under mortar fire than Karen had done in 50 years of carefully curated life. She had shielded children with her body, had broken her hand calling for help, had almost died, but didn't, and then came home without a parade or headline splash. No big talk show moment, no viral video. She'd just gotten on a plane, in uniform, and sat quietly next to someone who didn't think she belonged there. Karen's fingers trembled as she scrolled past the last paragraph. Her thumb hovered over the link, then backed out of the browser. She stared at the blank home screen, then tossed the phone across the bed. It bounced once and landed beside her travel-size moisturizer, unopened. She stood slowly, like her limbs were unfamiliar. crossed the room in a daze, barefoot on thick hotel carpet. In the mirror above the dresser, her reflection stared back. Smeared mascara, bloodshot eyes, scarf lopsided. For the first time in a long time, she looked like she didn't know who she was. And maybe she didn't. Because the woman who scoffed at Dayna Cohen, who leaned into that condescending smile on the plane, who said those words, "People might get uncomfortable," who was she, really? She wasn't evil. She wasn't violent. She just thought she knew more than other people. She thought the world made more sense when she categorized it. Soldier, civilian, loud, quiet, polite, aggressive. And Dayna didn't fit any of her boxes. Karen had been taught to recognize power through noise, through prestige, through wealth. But Dayna had power without performance, presence without permission, the kind that didn't need to be announced. And that terrified Karen, because it showed her how small her version of the world really was. She reached for her scarf and peeled it off like it was suffocating her, then grabbed her carry-on, yanked the zipper open and began rifling through the contents. She didn't know what she was looking for. A distraction, maybe, or something to anchor her. Her hand brushed a small leather notebook. She opened it. Inside were pages of checklists, spa appointments, work meetings, charity brunches, things that once felt important. Now, they read like hollow rituals. Kieran flipped to a blank page and stared at it. Then, without thinking, she wrote, "I was cruel today." She stared at the sentence. Then, beneath it, "I saw a woman brave enough to be silent in the face of my ignorance. I owe her more than an apology. I owe her a change." She slammed the notebook shut. She didn't know what that change would look like yet, but she knew it had to start now. The next morning, Dayna sat in a small local diner off East 12th Street, sipping burnt coffee from a chipped mug and listening to the low hum of early risers. She wore a plain black hoodie, jeans, and no makeup. Her hair was tied back in a simple bun, and her posture was relaxed. Not military stiff, not today. Across from her sat her older sister, Maya, legs crossed, elbows propped on the sticky tabletop, eyes full of questions she wasn't yet ready to ask. "So," Maya said slowly, stirring her tea, "that woman really just said all that to your face?" Dayna nodded once. Maya let out a low whistle. "I'd have flipped the whole tray of peanuts on her." Dayna smirked. Plain didn't serve peanuts. And the tray table. She wasn't worth the effort. Maya studied her for a moment. "That's the part that scares me, Dayna. What? Inventing themselves at once. You don't get mad anymore, you just go quiet." Dayna took another sip. "You think silence is weakness?" "No. I think silence is heavy. You carry it too much." Dayna didn't respond. She looked out the window instead, watching two young boys race each other down the sidewalk, backpacks bouncing. For a moment, she imagined the children from Fallujah. Their screams, the dust, the heat, the sound of her bones cracking when the blast hit. Silence wasn't weakness. It was survival. But Maya wasn't wrong. Some weights weren't meant to be carried forever. As if reading her mind, Maya reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. "What's that?" "Letters," Maya said, sliding the folder across the table. "From parents, teachers, people who found out what you did. I didn't give them to you before, because I knew you'd just put them in a drawer." Dayna opened the folder. The first letter was from a father. "You saved my daughter's life. I will teach her your name before I teach her mine." The second, "They said you didn't hesitate, that you ran toward the kids before the second shell landed. My son draws pictures of you now. You're his superhero." Dayna's throat tightened. The letter was smudged with tears, actual ink streaks trailing off the paper. She folded it shut. Maybe it's time, Maya said quietly. Time for what? To stop hiding. To let people see what you've done. I didn't do it to be seen. I know, Maya said gently. But sometimes visibility is a kind of justice, too. Dayna didn't answer, but she didn't close the folder either. Outside the diner, a woman watched from across the street. She wore oversized sunglasses and gripped a newspaper too tightly. Her name was Karen. She hadn't meant to follow her here. She just wanted to see. She hadn't known Dayna would look so normal out of uniform. She looked younger somehow, softer. Karen stood frozen, unsure what she was doing. Apology? Thank you? What would either mean? And who was she to speak them? Then, across the street, Dayna lifted her eyes and met Karen's. Just for a flicker of a moment. Karen froze. Dayna didn't scowl. Didn't smile either. But she nodded. Just once. Then turned her attention back to her sister. Karen's throat clenched. And for the first time in her life, she backed away, not out of pride, but out of reverence. 3 weeks later, the air buzzed with the quiet kind of energy that only libraries knew. The rustle of turned pages, the soft clack of laptop keys, whispered questions floating between the rows of shelves. Dayna sat at the head of a long, low stage in the Austin Public Library auditorium, a black mic clipped to her collar. Her uniform was crisp. She hadn't worn it since the flight. She didn't plan to speak today. She had agreed to just be present, to sit on the panel of local veterans for a community recognition event. But things had a way of shifting when you least expected them to, and the organizer, a sweet older woman named Mrs. Tompkins, had gently ushered her to the main chair with a hand on her elbow, and a whisper that sounded like both encouragement and challenge. Let them see you. So here she was, back straight, legs grounded, face unreadable. Next to her sat a Vietnam veteran with shaky hands and a voice like gravel. Beside him, a young Marine, barely 23, eyes still bright with the early glow of service. They'd both spoken. People clapped, some cried. And then came the voice from the back of the room. Not loud, but clear. Tehran, Staff Sergeant Cohen. The room stilled, heads turned. Karen stepped forward from the rear aisle, hands clasped tightly in front of her beige jacket stiff at the shoulders, like it hadn't been worn in a while. Her posture was different, smaller, not broken, but unguarded. She looked around once, eyes wide like someone trying not to flinch. I'm sorry, she said. No preamble, no build-up, just 3 words, spoken plain, like they had waited their whole lives to be said. I was the woman on the plane, Karen continued, voice thinning under the weight of her own confession. I spoke to you in a way that, if my son had heard me, I would have been ashamed. I judged you. I made assumptions. I saw a uniform and forgot there was a person in it. No one interrupted. I read about you the next day, she said, her hands tightening. And I broke down. Not because I was caught, but because I realized I've lived most of my life with blinders. I thought kindness was politeness, that goodness came from being quiet and nice and put together. But you taught me that true grace is being stronger than someone and choosing not to crush them with it. She stepped closer to the stage. I don't expect forgiveness. I didn't come here for a pat on the back. I came to say thank you for your service, for what you did over there, for how you carried yourself over here, and for holding up a mirror to someone like me, even if I didn't like what I saw. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sacred. Dayna stood slowly, walked to the edge of the platform, looked down at Karen. She could have left her there, could have nodded and sat back down. Instead, she extended her hand. Karen blinked, disoriented by the gesture, and then stepped forward and took it. Their hands met, not as equals in rank or class or experience, but as people, one who needed to be heard, and one who had waited too long to be seen. The audience stood. Applause rippled through the room like a rising tide. Dayna didn't let go for a long moment. Then she leaned in and said quietly, just for Karen, "It takes courage to change. Keep going." Karen nodded, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks, the kind she didn't wipe away this time. Later that evening, the library cleared out slowly. Dayna stood near the exit, shaking hands, answering questions, accepting hugs from strangers who now called her hero, even though she still didn't feel like one. Maya found her near the elevator. "Well," Maya said, handing her a bottled water, "that was not boring." Dayna snorted softly. "Not what I expected. You handled that beautifully. I didn't do it for her." "I know, but she needed it." Dayna leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching the last of the event volunteers clean up pamphlets and fold chairs. "People surprise you sometimes," she murmured. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Good surprise or bad?" "Depends on the day," Dayna said with a shrug. Then she added, "Today? Good." 2 days later, Dayna walked into the elementary school on East 7th Street, not in uniform, but in jeans and a green cardigan. Her boots were dusty from the parking lot. The front office secretary stood when she saw her. "Staff Sergeant Cohen," she said, eyes wide. "Thank you so much for coming." "I go by Dayna," she smiled. "I'm just here to read." The school had invited her after someone on the library panel recommended her for their Veterans and Community Heroes Day. The staff expected a speech. She asked if she could just read to the kids instead. The classroom was bright, full of hand-drawn posters and desks just a little too small. A boy in the front row whispered, "She's the one from the news," and Dayna chuckled under her breath. As she sat in the teacher's chair and opened the book, brave Irene, she read every word with care. Halfway through, the little girl raised her hand. Her hair was in 2 puffballs, her smile gap-toothed. "Did you really save kids in the war?" she asked, eyes round as planets. Dayna paused, closed the book for a moment. "I tried my best," she said. "That's what matters most." The little girl nodded solemnly, then grinned. And Dayna realized that maybe, just maybe, showing up in this small classroom, without medals, without ceremony, was just as meaningful as anything she'd ever done under fire. Maybe even more. Outside the school, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. A black SUV sat across the street. Inside, Karen watched from the driver's seat, fingers drumming nervously on the wheel. She wasn't stalking, she'd been invited. A quiet gesture from Maya after the event, a kind of olive branch. Karen didn't get out. She didn't walk up. But she saw the way Dayna knelt beside that little girl, handing her the book. She saw the gentleness, the warmth, the quiet power that didn't need to be explained. And she whispered to no one but herself, "Thank you, not for forgiveness, but for being who she was, even when the world didn't deserve her." Karen drove away in silence, and for the first time in decades, she didn't feel superior. She just felt, and that was a beginning.